Howdy RC fans, I'm Iron Okie, this is the Iron Forge, and today we're going to talk about the Redcat Racing Gen 8 Scout. Alright, so the Redcat Racing Gen 8 Scout, this is a crawler, a 10th scale RC crawler. It's one that I am very excited about and was super excited about the beginning of this year when it came out. Believe it or not, I pre-ordered one of these models. I got it right when they came out, when they first released, and here I stand in August of 2019, and I'm just now going to get to open it for the first time. If you've been following my channel, you know my wife and I had our first child right there in January, so I got this crawler just in time for us to have a baby, and I have not had a lot of chance to get out and go do a ton of crawling, and what I have done has been with the stuff that I've kind of already opened and been messing with, so I haven't had a chance to get in out there with the Gen 8 yet, and I'm pretty excited to do it. We're not going to do a full unboxing video, but I will go ahead and unbox it and let you guys see me open it up. I think there's plenty of unboxing videos out there, so I don't think that's such a big deal, but let's open it up, take a look, see what our first impressions are. That's pretty cool. Spare tire included. Boy, that's soft. Wow. Woo-wee. She's a looker. Alright, the Scout's out of the box, and you guys are kind of experiencing first impressions at the same time I am. I just now pulled it out of the box, and I gotta say, this thing is beautiful. Really good looking truck. Really nice. Golly, I love the scale body on this. I'm a big fan of licensed bodies. I'm a huge fan of International Scouts. My dad had an International Scout when I was growing up. It's the first vehicle that if I go back to my childhood memories, it's the first vehicle that I really remember riding around in. It's the first vehicle that I remember thinking was really cool. And of course, I was very young when he sold it. I wish I would have been old enough to know how special those vehicles were and been able to ask him to hang on to it, because I would love to have inherited that truck. But oh well, this will have to do. Licensed body's really nice. The graphics look good. It's got a lot of plastic molded parts on it. The bumper, obviously plastic molded. The grill is a really nice. That plastic grill is really nice. The bumper, plastic molded. It's got Redcat. Probably can't see it, but it's got Redcat molded into the plastic there. If you see me sweating, guys, I apologize. It's August in Oklahoma. We just had a big rainstorm the last couple days, so it is unbelievably humid out here. I wanted to have the fan on, but it was too loud, and I thought, it's going to mess with people trying to listen to what I'm doing. So I'm going to try to get through this quickly so I can turn the fan back on and cool off a little bit. So the body's really nice. I love the mirrors, and they're on a little pivot here, so that's pretty nice. Scale molded mirrors. The fender flares are super nice. Gosh. The wheels are a beadlock wheel. They have, looks like aluminum or some kind of metal rings. Beadlock rings or some kind of metal, but the wheels themselves are plastic. I love that they gave you a spare. Maybe somebody makes a spare tire mount that'll plug in back here and really kind of sit back there and look pretty cool. The foams are really soft. I know they have memory foams in them, and I know, it's summertime right now. It's plenty warm. In the wintertime, when these actually released, people were worried about or concerned about the memory foam not flexing enough or being a little too hard. Gosh, they don't feel hard at all to me now that it's nice and warm. But they're kind of easy to collapse. Definitely have some venting on them. I don't know if I guess the wheels are vented. Yeah, the wheels are vented. Not sure. We'll take them out and see how they do. They are licensed Super Swamper tires. That's pretty cool. So not only is the body licensed, but the tires are licensed. The wheels, as far as I know, are not a licensed wheel. But gosh, you do get a licensed body and licensed tires, and it's man, that's a sharp looking truck, really sharp. So let's open it up. The body is actually held on, which I think is kind of unique, with Velcro. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but there's Velcro straps on the fenders here that hold the body onto the truck. I'll flip it up so you can kind of see there. These Velcro strips right here on top of the wheel wells are what hold the body on. I really like that idea. I will tell you that I have some concerns about it because, especially in Oklahoma, it gets really hot, and the sticky stuff on the back of this Velcro never holds up very long. So I think this is a good solution out of the box. I don't expect it to be the kind of solution that lasts any length of time. I think we'll probably have to replace that with something a little more permanent, but maybe some magnets. We'll figure out a way to do some magnets. I don't want to drill any holes in this beautiful body. Just noticed, on that same point, just noticed, literally brand new out of the box, my speed controller has come unstuck. The foam is still here, but the sticky film that it goes to has actually stayed on the bottom here. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but never touched it, never driven it, just opened it out of the box, and the speed controller has already come loose. I'm going to stick that back down on there, and then we'll deal with that later. It's a very small thing, not a big issue, just I've got double-sided tape in the house that will hold that back on that I use specifically for ESC. So again, it's been stored out here in the shop for the last month or so. The most of its time it's actually been inside, but it has been out here for the last month, and it's been plenty hot. So I'm not surprised to see that kind of stuff start to fail, because it's Oklahoma, man, and it's hot. And I'm literally soaking right now with sweat. So they've got their name, Redcat, kind of molded in throughout the truck. I think that's a neat touch for the manufacturer. Bumpers are big and plastic. I'm sure that we could do a little tucking with the bumpers and get a little bit better performance out of the stock bumpers. If you really want to get crazy with it, you're probably going to replace these with something a little smaller and a little more comp oriented anyway. Hexfly speed controller, servo, I can't see. I bet it's Hexfly 2, but I can't see. I'm sure the motor is a Hexfly 2. Comes with a T-plug or a Dean's plug. I think that's a really nice nod that Redcat did to the enthusiast out there. This is probably the most popular connector that enthusiasts or RC folks use on cars. So to go ahead and put that on there from the factory, I think is a really nice touch. I personally don't use T-connectors. I actually, the Dean's style, I actually hate them. I can't stand those connectors. I swap all of my stuff to XT90s. There's a whole other video about why I do that. But the majority of people use this. That means the majority of people have a battery that has this plug on it. And so that's really cool for them to make that where most people can go ahead and jump right in and start using it. I love this body, although it is a Lexan body, feels really solid. It feels solid because it has a bunch of bracing on the inside specifically to help with that. Gosh, this is a sharp looking body. The light buckets are already LED ready, so you can immediately throw some LEDs in here and have some functioning stuff. This is definitely one of the nicest scale trucks or bodies I have seen. Chassis looks pretty good, man. Suspension's nice and smooth. It's got aluminum links underneath, which I like. I do not like the trucks that come with plastic links. I think that's a guaranteed early point of failure. Oh, it is a Hexfly servo, I can see in here. It has a metal servo horn on it. I like that a lot. Anybody that's driven a TRX4 or TRX4 Sport can tell you that plastic servo horns and crawlers don't last very long, and I love that they went ahead and put a metal one in here. I bet you that's going to last quite a bit longer than those Traxxas ones. I think every Traxxas TRX4 I've driven, which is 3 different ones now, has either broken or stripped the servo horn in the very first outing within about 20 minutes of driving. So a metal horn there is a really nice touch. Waterproof receiver box, or well, I don't know if it's waterproof or not. It might not be, but it's got a nice receiver box, clean wiring, nice and tied down. Other than the speed controller popping loose, I think it's pretty nice. It does have the jumpers on the ESC. It's very common on ready-to-run crawlers to have these ESCs that have these little jumpers on them. I'm not a fan of the little jumpers in there. It is, on the one side, it's super easy to go in there and tweak your settings for, NiCad or lithium ion or crawler or however you want to do that. So that's nice that it's easy on the fly to fix that. It's not as nice because honestly you can lose those things very easily, and then you're kind of sunk unless you have a bunch of extra jumpers lying around, which there may be some in the parts kit. I honestly don't know. Man, aluminum shocks, aluminum shock bodies, nice aluminum caps. It's got the mount here is plastic, but all the rest of the shock is aluminum. I think that's pretty nice. The chassis feels rigid. A little bit of flex in it, but not too much. Most of that flex is coming from the bumper where I'm bending it. Man, overall, I'm really impressed with this truck. I think it looks really nice. I can't wait to take it out and drive it around. One of the things I really love about this truck, and you can't see it here. Maybe I'll make another video and open it up. First of all, I love that they put caps on the wheel nuts. That's a really nice scale little detail to help make it look more scale. I really love that. And then underneath here, the big deal, the reason everybody was excited about this truck is the price point's $299 and you're getting portal axles. Portal axles, at the time this truck was released, were only available on the TRX4, and I think the TRX4 Sport was out then as well. And they're kind of a premium feature, and you're getting them for a very reasonable price on this truck. I've listened to a couple interviews with the Redcat guys when they designed this and kind of got to hear how it came about and what prompted them to release a crawler of their own. And I thought, those guys are enthusiasts. They like what they're doing. They're not just in it to make money. I think they're in it to make a product that people will enjoy. And I think that's really cool. It's always nice to have a hobbyist involved or somebody that enjoys what they're working on. Those are the ones that really know what's important to include in these trucks. And so far, I'm really pleased with how this truck looks, how it sits, how it feels. The most important thing, of course, is how it drives. And we'll take that out probably a little later today when it's a little cooler and go crawl around and see how it does. Let's see. Okay. Nice trim settings on the radio. All these ready-to-run radios feel extremely light and they feel really cheap, but it does have all the settings you want to have right there, and it has them on dials, which I personally really like instead of the digital stuff where you don't really know where you're at. So I'm a fan of that. What do I not like about it? Well, the ESC coming off of there was a little bit of a bummer, but that's not a big deal. Bumpers. Could probably, let's put the body back on how it goes. Is that it? Did I get it? Yeah, it's tucked right there, Back on there. Cool. Bumpers stick out too far. I think the front bumper looks like it could easily tuck back one position without having to cut anything. The rear bumper looks like it could probably tuck back one position without having to cut anything. They get hung up on stuff. If we're going to put big bumpers on these things, let's tuck them back in there a little bit. The biggest thing that I noticed about these trucks that I didn't like is the blacked out windows. If I was going to pick one thing about this truck that I don't like, it's the blacked out windows. This is a beautiful licensed body. Tons of scale detail went into this thing, and it's just this is a body that begs for a really nice scale interior, and it wouldn't matter if you did because you can't see it through the windows. There's a lot of videos out there on how to pull those decals off and then how to strip the paint underneath them. And I don't know if I'll do that. I might do that. It's a lot of trouble. It's a lot of effort for something that I feel like, from the factory would have been an easy, hey, let's just mask the windows when we paint the body and be done with it. So I think that would have been an easy fix. It would have gone a long way towards making this even that much more scale. Sorry about that, guys. Battery on the camera died. Had to do a quick battery change. So what I was saying is the body's really nice. It's well done. The one downside is the blacked out windows. You can pull the stickers off, sand off the paint, use some paint stripper to strip it, and then you can still have clear windows, but it's a lot of work. It's something I think we could have done pretty easily from the factory had they wanted to do that. So that's the one thing I would say is a miss from a scale perspective. Everything else looks really cool. So I'm very excited to take this truck out, drive it around, see how it performs. I will use the stock tires and stock foams first, and then I will probably swap out to maybe a Proline Hyrax or something like that and see how it does with some upgraded wheels and tires. But anyway, stick around. We'll do a little bit of running video and see how she does. Alright, this is the first hill that I take every truck to when I come out to this spot. It's kind of my first test for just about every vehicle. It is a pretty steep climb. It's not a long climb, but it's pretty steep and it is challenging. So far, the trucks I've run up this hill, the Element Enduro climbed it with no problems. The TRX4 Sport climbed it with no problems. The Gen 8 really struggled with this hill. It definitely had a hard time making this climb. It just does not have the grip it needs out of the tires, and it doesn't have the rigidity that it needs out of the foams to hold a perch once it starts climbing, and that I believe is why you see it start to tip. Anytime it starts to get a little bit of a grip, the foams just collapse underneath it and it rolls. Very, very prone to tip. Like I said, this was the first time that I noticed that this truck really, it doesn't feel top heavy when you hold it, but it definitely drives like it's top heavy. And I do think a piece of that is definitely the foams that are inside there. The truck does absolutely rip on 3S. So 3S with this particular motor in this truck it gets a ton of wheel speed. In combination with the radio that's very sensitive, that's a bit of a challenge to drive, but nothing that's overwhelming. And if you're a new driver to RC, you can always go back to a 2S and drive it around on 2S, and you won't have to deal with any of that. So. Here we go again, trying to get up there, just trying to find a perch, looking for a different approach, looking for any other way I can go. And, there we go again with the truck kind of tipping over. So this hill was a real challenge for the Gen 8. It was. This hill was just really tough. Desperately trying to get that front to grab right there and pull me up that hill the rest of the way, but unfortunately it's just not grabbing on that sandstone. Sandstone's a tricky surface anyway, so this is not a terrible knock on the Gen 8. This is a tricky surface and a very tricky hill. It doesn't probably come through as well on the camera, but it is a tough climb. Trying to save it from a flip right there. I'm pretty persistent when I set my mind to doing something, and I gave this hill many attempts, tried different angles, tried just about anything I could think of to give me an opportunity to climb this hill, and eventually moving around to the backside just like that, I kind of worked my way around the hill and climbed up to the top. That's definitely not the route that the TRX4 Sport took or the Enduro took, but we climbed the hill. And you can't deny that Scout looks really good sitting on top up there. This is the second hill I take the trucks to out at this location. It's actually a more difficult hill to climb. It doesn't look as steep, but it's much more difficult for trucks to climb. And right away, the Gen 8 kind of stalls out, and then eventually here is just going to fall victim to a little bit of that soft foam and tip right over. This hill is really tough. Every truck I take out here, even the best of them, struggle to climb this hill. So this is not a knock on the Gen 8 either. This is a really tough hill, and the Enduros climbed it. I don't think the TRX4 Sport ever made it up this hill, so I think the Enduro is the only truck to actually climb this hill up that original tough line that I'm taking right there. I am going to try to take a little bit of an easier line to come around the side, and it looks pretty promising at first, but we pretty quickly lose grip and unfortunately start to slip back down. So continues to be a challenge to climb this hill. Again, I believe a set of foams and tires make a world of difference right here. So we'll definitely come back and test that out. But again, we take the more challenging or the less challenging line there, and we climb right up to the top. So it's definitely not impossible, and the truck is still a very, very good performing truck. The Scout actually descends beautifully. This is a really steep descent. It's a big decline going down that hill, and the Gen 8 actually handles it brilliantly. So I think a lot of those same things that make it struggle to climb make it actually a really great descender. Tough ascent with the Gen 8 here, using a little bit of wheel speed to my advantage, and I start to get a purchase and I can climb up. This is the toughest line on this particular hill to climb. It's probably the longest hill at this location, and of course once we start getting a little sideways, she just tips right over. I think we should note here, I'm not a veteran driver, guys. Some of this is probably driver error on the hill causing some of these tips. Right here I ran into an interesting problem. The battery had fallen out of the tray of the truck. So the Gen 8 is not built to have a half width battery. So I actually had to stop what I was doing and go replace the battery. I run a half-length battery in my crawlers. I don't like the extra weight of a full-length battery, and the Gen 8's not set up for that. So you're definitely going to have to do some modification if you run a half-width battery or half-length battery. So be prepared for that, because in this case the battery, I strapped it down pretty well, but it still fell out and was dragging behind the truck, so I had to stop and do a repair. This is the part where I think the center bump on that slider in the middle, the skid plate, is getting hung up. I don't think that's what's preventing us from making this climb. I really think the lack of grip in the front and rear tires is what's holding us up here. But this is definitely a part where that skid in the middle, or that bump in the middle of that skid, would get hung up and could cause some issues. This is where we start to see that side hilling is really just a non-starter. Anytime you get this thing up on the side, it wants to roll over immediately. About the only thing you can do is try to kind of angle it, point it uphill, and let it slip sideways a little bit like I'm doing here. I'm not a good enough driver to do this over any extended distance, but it's about the only way you can carry the truck along the side of a hill. So if you can tell, I'm basically pointing vertical and sliding over the hill a little bit. That's it for the driving section. Let's take it back to the Iron Forge for the conclusion. Alright, we're back in the Iron Forge, and now that we've taken her out for a drive, I want to do a little bit of a conclusion on the Redcat Gen8. So we took her out to my favorite little spot. It's not very far from the house. It's roughly about a mile up the road from me. It is a sandstone, primarily. It's a little sandstone location with some pretty good climbs, some pretty nice places to go test articulation and crawling, good opportunities to test side hilling. It is only one type of terrain, so it is pretty much only limited to that sandstone type terrain. So obviously, varied terrain trucks are going to perform differently. Hopefully you enjoyed some of the running video. You can see I took this out. I I really tried to test it as best I could to the limits of my ability anyway. And I gotta say, overall, I'm really pleased with the performance of the Gen 8. The truck went out there and acquitted itself very, very well. It handled very well on a lot of varied terrain. The first thing I would point out is this thing on the trail, out there crawling, it looks absolutely stunning. This truck is absolutely gorgeous out there on the trails, out there crawling. It looks phenomenal. Of all the trucks I think I've driven, this one is probably the one that passes the eye test the most. It is gorgeous out there on the rocks running around. So if getting out there and looking like looking really nice, looking good is your cup of tea, you definitely need to consider the Gen 8 because this thing looks beautiful on the trail. The next thing I would tell you is for a ready to run, it performs really well. If you buy this truck and your intention is to take it out and go trailing with it, you're gonna be totally happy. I think you can take this thing right out of the box, put it on the trail, take it with you, and you're gonna be just fine. You're gonna be totally happy with the performance. You're not gonna have too many problems. It does a really good job on varied terrain, and it's, again, right out of the box, it's a good performing truck. If your intention is to take this truck rock crawling, you're going to run into some problems. The truck drives really well, but it doesn't climb all that great. It has pretty poor climbing characteristics. I believe most of that is because of these really soft foams that are in these tires. The tires themselves aren't very sticky. They don't grip very well. And the foams that are inside there, when it's hot, are way too soft. Apparently when it's cold, they're too hard. But when it's hot, they're too soft. There's too much give. I'll put a couple pictures up, and I'll show you. There were some times where I would articulate over a rock, and I would darn near have this tire compressed to the rim just with the weight of the truck sitting on it. And that's too much compression. That's not enough stability out of the tires. As a result of that, it doesn't climb super steep inclines very well. It doesn't side hill very well. There's no rigidity in these tires. So when you start to put this on a side hill, those tires roll underneath the truck really easy. And it's already pretty top heavy, so as it rolls underneath, the truck's going to tip over. So hopefully you can see that on the video, but those tires roll underneath really, really easy. There's not a lot of lateral strength in those foams. So the tires aren't very grippy. The foams are too soft, and they have virtually zero lateral grip. The truck's pretty top heavy. It likes to tip over quite a bit. I'm anxious to try this out with some different tires and see if it might work a little bit better. Maybe with some different foams and different tires, that lateral grip increases and it does a better job on the side hills. The truck doesn't feel as top heavy as a TRX4, just holding it, but when you're driving it on the trail, it handles like it's really, really top heavy. And because of that, because it feels that way on the trail, that makes me think that the tires are a pretty big culprit. Because when you just hold it, it doesn't feel that it's overly top heavy. Portal axles do tend to raise your center of gravity, so portal axle vehicles typically have a harder time doing the side hills because their center of gravity is higher. They have a little bit harder time climbing because their center of gravity is higher. So we definitely have some challenges there, but there are a lot of benefits to portal axles too. And again, the negatives don't take away from what this truck is. It looks stunning on the trail. It performs really well over varied terrain. If you're going to do a lot of rock crawling, you need to add some upgrades. So the first thing I would say, 100% needs tires and foams. No question. If you're going to rock crawl, you need to budget in tires and foams for this truck. The good news is it comes with beadlock wheels from the factory, so you don't have to buy the wheels. You can just buy the tires and foams, swap them onto the same wheels that are right here, and you are going to be in business. The wheels are actually really nice. They're plastic, but other than that, they look really good. There's no reason not to just swap the tires and foams and go. I don't think you need a whole lot else. The bumpers need to be tucked a little bit. That always helps with clearance, especially the front bumper. It's sticking out here way too far. But again, you could easily tuck that up without even having to do any trimming on this body. And you'd have a much better clearance on the truck. Even with the blacked out windows, the thing looks so good. The radio, not great. Very touchy, very sensitive. I don't use the ready-to-run radios. I actually have a really nice radio that I tend to swap most of my trucks over to. I've got a second radio now that's an aftermarket radio. Not quite as nice as the first one, but the idea is if I bring somebody over and I want them to be able to go crawl with me, if I have all of my trucks bound to one radio, I can't share them out. So I'm going to have a secondary radio to loan out to folks that'll have some of my trucks stored on it too. But I'm told a different radio actually increases your steering radius, or is your steering, the amount of steering you get. Apparently the potentiometer in this particular radio is not enough to give you full articulation of the steering. So changing the radio out supposedly immediately gives you more steering. So we'll try that out here in the next couple of weeks and see, and I'll definitely report back on that. All in all, really happy with it. For the price you pay for this truck, which is $299, you're getting a lot of RC crawler. Don't let the fact that you need to upgrade tires and foams turn you off of this truck. I have yet to see a ready-to-run truck released that you didn't need to upgrade the tires and foams on. So I would say on this one, it's probably more critical than most, just because of the way that it acts when you're rock crawling. But honestly, you're going to need to do that to pretty much any ready-to-run you buy, so don't let that turn you off of this truck. The good news is with this one, you don't have to buy the wheels on top of that, so you're still coming out relatively inexpensively, definitely under $400, ready to go, take it out on the trails and rock and roll. The last thing I will point out, as the shop dogs or knuckleheads over there playing, the last thing I will point out is people lost their minds on this hump on the bottom of the skid plate on this truck. When this thing was first released and they started showing pictures on the internet, the people in the Facebook group lost their mind about this hump. If you look at it, I'll try to get up there close to you guys, you will see that there are definitely some scuff marks on that from the roughly 30 to 45 minutes of crawling that I did out there. So it is making contact with the rocks. It is hitting things as I'm crawling over. Honestly, though, I can tell you, I don't think it ever actually hung me up and stopped me. I think it is smooth enough down there that it drug it right over the top of that and didn't have any issues. It's actually a really easy fix if you want to fix that, and you want to change it. If you're going to do some heavy-duty rock crawling, yes, you're probably going to want to do that. But honestly, I was expecting to have a lot of problems with that as much as people were freaking out about it. I had no problems with it. Yes, you can see that it did make contact with the sandstone stuff out there. Yes, I'm sure that if you go into some heavy-duty rock crawling, it's going to cause you issues, but it's not that big a deal, especially starting out. Really what I would do is upgrade the foams and tires, and I'd take it out and go have a blast with it. It's a beautiful truck. Redcat did a phenomenal job on this thing. For the price you pay, it is a seriously good performer. It's a strong contender in there for beginners getting into the hobby, and even the veterans that are looking for a new ready-to-run rig. I think it's a heck of a bargain. I think it's a heck of a truck, and I'm very, very pleased with it overall. So hopefully this was helpful to you guys. I think next up we're going to do the HPI Venture, so stay tuned for that. We'll also do a segment on some tools, and maybe we'll spend a little time talking about tires. I'm actually going to move to a spec tire for the purposes of testing, and we'll do another trip with the Redcat with the spec tire turned on, so we can kind of even all that out across the board. So all in all, really good truck, solid truck. Probably not as capable out of the box as a TRX4 Sport or as the Element Enduro, but it's also significantly less expensive than both of those trucks. So I think you change the foams and the tires, and I think you're right there in the ballpark with those trucks. So it's a hell of a performer for a heck of a price. I would not hesitate to pick one of these up, guys. This is a heck of a truck, and like I said, it looks absolutely beautiful out there. Hopefully it was helpful, guys. This is Iron Okie. I'll catch you next time.